Today we're going to be reviewing The Last Will and Testament by Opeth. Just came out. Picked this up at the local record store in Vegas. This has the Blu-ray with it, which I haven't seen yet. A lot of people have been talking about this record. A lot of people have been saying it's going to be album of the year. Then you have like Opeth haters that have basically hated on Opeth since Watershed. So I wanted to give a review, just an honest, I've listened to this album many times. And I just want to give, hopefully, an objective review here, maybe somewhere in between the lovers and the haters. So let's get started. Now I'm going to do a track by track review. We're going to start with paragraph one. Before we do that, I want to take a look at how I rate different tracks and albums. Okay, so here's kind of my way that I review all tracks and albums. We're mostly going to be in this range today, folks. So 6 is going to be decent. 7 is good. I'm going to like it. I'm going to listen to it once a year, maybe, and enjoy it. 8 is solid. Really like it. I'm going to listen to it about every month. 9 is great. Thoroughly enjoy it. Listen to it every week. And 10 is excellent. I love it. I could listen to it every day. Not get tired of it. So the way I would explain the way this album starts off is mysterious and proggy. It does build into something heavy, resembling the earlier sound of the band. A lot of people have been talking about this. What does it sound like? Which album does it sound like most? Well, I first heard Watershed and Deliverance. But then we have the spoken word, which I think is very haunting and contributes to the unique nature of the album. So while you can compare it to some of their earlier works, it really stands on its own, and I don't think there's a lot of albums like it. Arion did an album called Transitus a couple years ago with the spoken word. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that, but for the most part, it's very unique. If once you listen to it, I think you'll say, I've never really heard an album like this. So, with that being said, I am going to rate the first track. I'm going to rate the first track an 8.0. I think it's strong. I like it. I don't love it, but I think it's memorable. And it's something that I would, again, probably listen to every once in a while and enjoy it. All right, then we get to paragraph two. So, I would say this track starts out really strong and then kind of tapers off. This happens a lot with the album. Opeth likes to do this. They go from really heavy to really light. Sometimes I think it works. Sometimes I don't think it works. I want to say, I want to mention that I know there's a lot of Opeth fans probably watching this video. It's okay to be critical of a band that you like. I've been a fan of Opeth since Demon the Fall, okay? Been listening to them for a long time. It's okay to criticize parts of their music. Not everything they do is perfect. And there's times in this album where it's really heavy and then all of a sudden it gets really light. And I just don't think that the transition is very smooth, okay? That's just my opinion. However, there are a lot of fun kind of moments in this song, fun little riffs. You'll see in this album, or you're hearing this album, a lot of like dissonance, heaviness, and then it'll go to like a happy chord, like a major chord. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Ghost Reveries. Track two, I would also say there are times when Michael sings that I feel like it just falls flat. Okay. And it's almost skippable, and that's just my opinion. So, with that being said, I'm still going to give this a 7.0 for this track. I would listen to it every once in a while and enjoy it, but it's not something I'm going to fast forward to. Next up, we have paragraph three. Now, this was one of the first songs they released, and everybody got super hyped when they heard the growls. It's very proggy, headbanging start, I would say. Memorable again. A lot of times when I review albums, I'm looking to see, is it something memorable? Do I hear it in my head when I'm in the shower or just during the day? Do I want to go back to it? And paragraph three definitely has that. The keyboards in this track definitely keep it going. Very kind of upbeat, and the keyboardist is great. Been with the band for a while. This is definitely going to be a crowd favorite. It's going to get them moving, get those heads banging. I do wish they had some more growls here, but that's coming up later in the album. But I think it's still a solid track. Again, I think sometimes when Michael sings, it's just kind of boring to me, and I'm just being honest. So let's take a look at my rating for this track. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to give paragraph 3 an 8.0. Listen to it maybe once a month and enjoy it. If I listen to it too much, I'd probably get tired of it. Okay, now we get to paragraph 4. So here's when we kind of see a shift in sound with the album. It's a little bit more laid back. It has a very memorable jazzy interlude with a flute solo. Kind of sounds like background music for a scene from a 70s like romance movie. I like it a lot. It's memorable. I can hear it in my mind right now. There's also really heavy moments in this track as well. And then there's parts where, again, I think it falls flat. So I think it's kind of a mixed bag. So with that being said, I'm going to give paragraph 4 a 7.5. I think it's somewhere between good and great. It's got really good parts. Also, there's some parts where it's a bit boring. All right, now let's move on to paragraph 5. Paragraph 5 has an acoustic intro. It really takes you back to older Opeth. I started thinking about Still Life, and there were some acoustic tracks from Damnation, and I thought, oh, okay, here we go. It's very intriguing. It draws you in. There's some Middle Eastern sounding riffs, which I think was, I believe, Closure from Damnation had something like that. Again, I'm drawing back from older Opeth, but at the same time, this is a very unique album that I think just stands alone from the rest of their discography. Um, what I really love about paragraph 5 is the interplay between acoustic and death growls. And that's what really makes the band, I think. That's what made them great. If you look at Still Life, going back to, My Arms, Your Hearse, they did that really is, I think, what blew people away. And I think going back to that was one of the greatest things they've done in the last 10, 15 years. The vocal layers on this track are absolutely breathtaking. The production and just there's harmony, there's growls all mixed together. It's insane and it's mesmerizing. This is an amazing track. With that being said, I'm going to give this a 9.5. It's almost a 10. I could almost listen to this song every day and love every second of it. It is a classic Opeth track. Hopefully, they put it on their set list and play it in almost every one of their shows. Let's take a look at paragraph 6 now. So the way that paragraph 6 starts reminds me of a track off of Sorceress. I don't remember which one. It's kind of acoustic, but it's upbeat and it draws you in. This is another example of classic Opeth death metal progression, where they mix the light parts with the heavy parts in a perfect mixture. Because I said before, sometimes I don't think they get it right, but to me, this is the best track on the album. There's a riff at around the 3 minute mark that is just so catchy, and it's gonna get every head banging in the audience. I would put paragraph 6 right up there with Demon of the Fall, the more um, any of the tracks off of Blackwater Park, Drapery Falls, all those classic Opeth tracks. I would put this right up there with it. So with that being said, I'm also going to give this one a 9.5. I almost gave it a 10. It may become a 10 one day, but it's hard for me to give this a 10. Would I say this is just as good as Bleak, or those really top tier Opeth songs? Maybe not quite, but it's darn close. So now let's take a look at paragraph 7 as the album is coming to a close. Okay, this has a very groovy, hard-hitting intro. Again, very memorable. Michael has a good way of writing memorable riffs. And again, I'll say this again. When reviewing music, I don't know how you can rate an album good if you don't remember it, right? If it's forgettable, it's not a good album. This is this is not forgettable. This is memorable. I think that this track is something that you're going to go back to, and the intro really stands out. It's more progginess mixed with heaviness. This album seems to do a good job of that. You have the prog aspect of Opeth that they've been doing for the last 15 years, and then they bring back a lot of the heaviness. I've heard people saying that there's not a lot of death metal in here, but I think there is. It's not as death metally as their older albums, but it's still there. And to me, um, those growls and that heaviness does make this album better than a lot of the albums that they put out in the last 10 or 15 years, even though I do like the proggy aspect of Opeth. The keyboards mixed with the heavy chugging really work for paragraph 7. I would say, though, that the outro is a bit long, and again, I'm a bit bored with it. So, with that being said, I'm going to give paragraph 7 still an 8.0. It's a strong track, something that I could listen to at least once a month, maybe more, and enjoy it. If I listen to it too much, probably going to get tired of it. And finally, we have the last track on the album, doesn't have the paragraph structure. It's just called A Story Never Told. So again, I told you it's going to be this honest review. I want to stop for a second and just comment on the fact that I think as a society in general, we've gotten very sensitive and not willing to take criticism or listen to point of views that are different than ours. So I just want to throw that out there before I talk about this last track. Even if you love a band, you should be able to just shrug and say, I don't agree with you and move on. So with that being said, I don't like this story never told very much at all. I think it's bland, mediocre, and forgettable. There's not much going on with it. It's not terrible, but it really doesn't stand back. I don't think it fits with the album. Lyrically, I could see why Michael put it in there, but I've actually just cut it out from my playlist. I don't include it in the album when I'm listening to it. And I think it's better as a result. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to give Story Never Told a 5.0. It's mediocre, it's forgettable. I just don't think it belongs in the album. If you add all that together and average it, you're going to get a 7.8 for The Last Will and Testament. That's still a good album. It's still something I think you should purchase. And I've got my copy here that I've been listening to. I think that if you take that last track out, it's going to be an 8.4. Sorry, I meant to say 8.2. Take the last track out and just do the first 7 paragraphs. I'm going to give it an 8.2. Again, I think it's a solid rating. I don't think this is up there with Blackwater Park, Still Life, Ghost Reveries, My Arms Your Hearse, but I also think that it's actually better than Watershed and anything they've put out in the last 15 years. The fact that these guys are in their 50s and still putting out bangers like this is incredible. I can't wait for their next album. I hope that they include the growls again and the heaviness because I think that the interplay between the light, the proggy, and the heavy is really what makes Opeth a great band.